Okay, so good afternoon, students. Am I audible to all?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are audible.
Yeah, so we will start the session now, and our experiment for today's session will be experiment number 7. The aim is to study the characteristics of a PN junction diode and measure various parameters under forward bias as well as reverse bias conditions. So this is experiment number 7, A part, and B part will be the study of various rectifier circuits. You all know what do you mean by rectifier. We'll see how to implement different type of rectifier circuits using these PN junction diodes. So let me just share the slide with you. So this is the lab manual for experiment 7. This is A part. I can say this is experiment 7, sorry, 7A. There will be
Sir, your
several.
voice is a little low.
Now is it audible?
Sir, it's audible, but it's low.
Okay. Now is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is the first part I was telling you regarding the PN junction diode, and this will be the circuit which we'll implement and see the current versus voltage characteristics, and we'll see what are the different type of resistances defined for a diode, and then we'll see how to what is the observation table and so on. And then the B part of this experiment is this implementing of various rectifier circuits. So we will see what is the theory behind half wave rectification, full wave rectification, and bridge rectification. All the three circuits we will see and find out and derive some important factors for all these three circuits. Fine. So let us start the session. I'll share with you another slide where I'll be discussing the theory. Just a second. Okay, is it visible to all?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is 7A part. Second. Okay. So let us start. So we have this. We have to study the PN junction diode, right? So we have P and N type semiconductors here, and N type semiconductors. What are these? Here we will be having the electrons, which are the majority carriers here, and minorities are the holes. So you can see here, these are the majority carriers, the electrons here, these, and minority carriers are the holes for an N-type semiconductor. Now this is a P-type semiconductor. You can see the minority carriers are electrons here, and we can say majority carriers are holes. So majority, whenever we say that, these are more in number here. So this is an N-type and P-type semiconductor, and what we do to form this diode, we join these two junctions together. So you can see on this figure downside, it is a joining of P and N-type semiconductors, and a junction is formed here between them. So P and N junction forms a PN junction diode here. So we say that this diode, how to represent it? The symbol is, we all know, this is the representation of a diode. This is the anode and this is the cathode terminal. And how to show it in the representation here in terms of semiconductors. This is a p-type semiconductor which is joined with n-type semiconductor. Okay, this is the two way to represent. The symbol form is the one which we generally use. Fine. Now what happens because of this joining of these two semiconductor layers? Whenever we talk about an unbiased diode, what happens? Unbiased means we are not connecting any other supply, any other polarity of voltage at either anode or cathode. Okay, so this is the first condition. That means whenever we join these two semiconductor layers together, at the instant these two are joined, the electrons and holes in the region of at the junction will combine and they will result in lack of free carriers in the region near the junction. So the only particles which are in this region are the positive and negative ions, which are remaining once all the free carriers have been absorbed. Now you can see here there is a depletion region which is being formed here. So this is the p-type semiconductor, holes are the majority, electrons are the minority. So from the n-type, the electrons reach the boundary here at the junction, and from p-type the holes reach the n-type here. So as a result of which, what will happen? There will be an electric field which is being produced from minus to plus here. So this region is actually known as this depletion region here. So this region of uncovered positive and negative ions is called the depletion region due to the depletion of free charge carriers in this particular region here. Now, since we are talking about an unbiased diode condition, because we know either this is, you can see that this is the anode, this is cathode. So what are the three conditions which you can have? Either the voltage across this, that is VAK, the voltage across this diode can either be 0, it can either be positive, or this voltage can either be negative. So the first case is the one which we are talking about, an unbiased condition, unbiased diode. When VAK is greater than 0, we say that it is the second condition, or it is forward biased. This is unbiased. And the third one is when VAK is less than 0, the third condition, when we say that it is reverse biased. So in all the three conditions, we will see what is the behavior of this PN junction. So since we are not applying any field or any bias here across the semiconductor diode, the net flow of charge in one direction is 0. In other words, we can say that the current under unbiased condition is 0. There is no current flowing, because now finally what has happened? There is a potential which is being developed here, minus and plus, because of which there is no further movement of charges to neutralize each other at the junction, isn't it? So if we don't apply any bias here, you can see here, if I'm connecting this is my anode, this is the cathode. If I'm not connecting anything here as a supply, you can see VD is 0 here in this particular case. So there is finally no current which is flowing through the device here. We say that it is a unbiased diode here. Now how to change the characteristics, how to change the behavior of this junction? We need to do some biasing. One of the ways is to do the reverse bias and the other one is the forward bias. So let us see the second condition here, or the one which we wrote as third, is reverse bias condition. Reverse bias condition. So what happens here? You can see we have applied. So this is our anode and cathode. This is the symbol here. And we had said that for reverse bias, VAK is less than 0. That means the potential of cathode terminal is less than that of the anode. So you can see if I want to join it like this, I have to put negative here, positive, negative, positive, and connect the cathode to the positive terminal. So this will be making the PN junction diode in the reverse bias condition. This is the P-type material and this is the N-type material. So P is connected to negative and N is connected to the positive terminal. We are basically giving this external bias to the PN junction. What will happen as a result? So whenever there is an external potential applied across this PN junction such that this positive is connected to N and negative is connected to the P-type material, what will happen? The number of uncovered positive ions in this depletion region of the N-type material, it will increase due to the large number of free electrons drawn to the positive potential of the applied voltage. Why? Because what is happening, we have connected this positive, this is connected to the N-type material. What will happen? Whatever the electrons are there, they are getting attracted towards this positive polarity. As a result, what will happen? These negative charges will move to the right to this particular terminal, leaving behind positive. So you can see here positive charges get accumulated at the depletion region on the N side, N-type semiconductor. What happens on the other side in the P-type? Negative is connected here to the P-type material, and P-type material have holes as the majority. So what will happen to these holes? They will be getting attracted toward this negative charge and get neutralized. As a result, they will be leaving behind electrons, negative charges. So you can see here more number of negative charges are now being present or being formed at the junction, which what they are doing actually by forming this negative and positive charges. You can see here initially itself we had minus minus plus plus, right? This was the depletion region. This was the potential which was being developed because of these charges. Now these are getting reinforced. Now what was this depletion region doing? It wasn't allowing any further flow of current, or you can say that any movement of charges across this junction. Now this is again being reinforced during this condition, right? Just a second, please hold. So the same thing is being getting reinforced here. That means what will happen? The opposition offered to any flow of current is actually being increased here. That means it will make the device to stay open circuited, or it will make sure that there is no further current flowing in this device. So the number of uncovered negative ions will increase in the P-type material, similar to that of free electrons increasing in the N-type layer. So this leads to widening of this particular depletion region, and it will establish a higher barrier. We say that this depletion region is producing a potential. This potential difference is so high, or you can say that it is a barrier to the flow of or movement of charges across the junction. It produces a barrier for the majority carriers to overcome. So it will effectively reduce the majority carrier flow to zero. So no further movement of majority carriers is possible in this kind of reverse bias condition. But still there will be some small amount of current which is flowing because of the minority charge carriers. What are the minority carriers here? Minority in N-type is holes, and in P-type is electrons. Okay, so there will be some small amount of current that exists, and that current flow will be in the opposite direction like this. So plus, that is, these holes in the N-type will start flowing, moving towards the through the junction and reach the P-type material here. So this is very small. Even if we say that the device is under reverse bias condition, but still this current is very small. It exists, and this is basically known as a reverse saturation current, and it is represented by IS. Okay, saturation current or reverse saturation current. So it is the current which is flowing in the reverse bias condition. We say that it is in the reverse bias condition. That means if this is anode and this is cathode in your symbol, then the current is flowing, the reverse saturation current is actually flowing from cathode to anode. We say that IS direction is from cathode to anode. And you can see this is how the reverse bias condition is. What happens in a forward bias condition? I'm just giving you the basics here, just revising it. The forward bias condition, VAK will be greater than 0 here. What will happen because of this? So positive is connected to this positive terminal, that means P-type terminal. Negative is connected here to the N-type semiconductor terminal. Already we know that there is a minus and plus potential difference across this, which is known as the barrier. What will happen because of this plus? This is connected to P, so the holes and this positive potential here will repel each other, and the holes will move in this particular direction away from this terminal towards the junction. Similarly, negative is connected here, that means this negative and the N-type majority carriers, which are the electrons, will move away from this terminal and towards the junction. So what will happen as a result? We can say that holes are moving in this direction, electrons are moving in this direction. Then what will they do? The holes will reach to the depletion region and cancel, or you can say that neutralize the excess electrons or negative charges which are formed at the depletion region. The more number of this, if we increase this, if this is a variable voltage, if we vary this, more number of holes will neutralize this, and finally what will happen? There will be a condition in which this barrier is actually being overcome by the diode. And finally the current starts to flow from anode to cathode. So this is how we bias your diode by varying the voltage and increasing it such that it overcomes the barrier potential and allows the flow of current from anode to cathode. So this on condition, we call this as the on condition of our diode, the forward bias condition. So the application of this forward bias will pressure these electrons in N-type material and holes in the P-type material to recombine with these ions at the boundary and reduce the width of this depletion region. So the resulting minority carrier flow from P-type to N-type and holes from N-type to P-type material do not change. Minority charge carrier current does not change because of this, since this conduction is controlled by the limited number of impurities in the material. But the reduction in this width of depletion region results in a majority carrier flow across the junction. We call that as the actual current, the majority carriers which are being flowing. So as this bias is increased in magnitude, I told you that we can vary this. When we increase this depletion region will continue to decrease in its width until a flood of these electrons can pass through the junction. That means from N-type to P-type these electrons will pass, constituting a current, an electron current from N to P or cathode to anode, whereas a conventional current from anode to cathode, resulting in this exponential rise in current here. So this is how you can say that in forward bias condition your diode actually starts conducting current here. So in forward bias condition we can represent the symbol as plus minus, and the current which is flowing here is the current ID of the diode from anode to cathode. And how do we represent this characteristics? So we know that it's an exponential increase. So general way of representing this characteristics for semiconductor diode is with the help of Shockley equation. And what is that equation? ID, which is the diode current, is equal to IS, the saturation current, reverse saturation current, to e raised to power VD, that is the voltage across diode, divided by eta Vt minus 1. So this is the expression, or this is the equation for representing the current versus voltage. So what is the current here? Current is Id. So this is on the y-axis, and this is the current on, sorry, this is the voltage on x-axis. If I'm plotting here this y-axis and this is x-axis, current versus voltage, Id versus Vd, you can see that this will be an exponential curve. Basically, y is equal to some constant k into e raised to power some constant into x minus 1, something like this if you compare, isn't it? So what you can say it is a kind of a exponential curve here, right? Now what is is? I told you already that this is the reverse saturation current. This constant here k is nothing but the reverse saturation current. Yes, am I audible to all?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So is the reverse saturation current. What is Vd? Vd is the applied forward bias voltage across the diode. What is N? N is the ideality factor. What is ideality factor? It is a function of operating conditions and the physical construction of the particular semiconductor diode, and it ranges between 1 and 2 depending upon various factors. What is Vt? Vt is known as the thermal voltage of the diode. Thermal voltage here, Vt. And what is the expression? How do you find out this thermal voltage? This is K into Tk divided by Q, where what is K? K is the Boltzmann's constant, and Tk is the temperature, absolute temperature in kelvins. And Q, we already know it is the magnitude of electronic charge, 1.6 into 10 raised to the minus 19 coulombs. So if someone asks you, or if it is being asked, what is the expression or equation for the current flowing through the diode, then you can write down this expression: Id is equal to Is into e raised power Vd by eta Vt minus 1, where Vt is the thermal voltage. It is equal to K into Tk divided by Q here. You can see that this is your expression which is shown here also. So in the forward bias condition, if we see what is happening, forward bias condition. So let me just write down here for forward bias condition. For forward bias condition, we know that what is the expression here? The expression can be written as Id is equal to Is into e raised power Vd divided by eta Vt minus 1. I can say clearly that in this case Vd is greater than 0. Vd is greater than 0. So we can say that there is an exponential increase in the current. Id is actually an exponential function of Vd here, right? Now what happens for unbiased condition? For an unbiased condition, we know that this voltage across the diode is 0. We have not excited it, we have not provided it any voltage. So Id Vd is equal to 0. So if Vd is equal to 0 in this expression, if we put Id is equal to Is into e raised power eta Vd divided by eta Vt minus 1, what we'll get? When Vd is equal to 0, Id is equal to Is e raised to power 0 minus 1, which is nothing but 0. I can say that whenever Vd is 0, we can say that your Id is also 0 here. E raised to power 0, we are getting here 1, so 1 minus 1 is 0 here. Now what happens in reverse bias condition? In the reverse bias conditions, Vd is here less than 0. If Vd is less than 0, what will happen here? We can say what is Id? Id is equal to is into e raised to power Vd divided by eta Vt, right? So in that particular case, I can say this is is into e raised to power some negative quantity, right? Some negative quantity minus 1. Now this is e raised to power minus quantity. Let me write down this as, if Vd is negative, so this will be some minus constant, a constant minus k. So is into what will be this value? E raised to power minus k. So if k is large, e raised to power minus k will tend to 0 if k value is very high, because we know that e raised to power minus k means 1 divided by e raised to power k. So as the value of k increases, e raised to power k value increases, and 1 divided by e raised to power k reduces. So as k value we increase, k, this e raised to power minus k is approximately becoming 0, or we can say that when you compare this value with respect to 1, then this will be very, very small. Like if I neglect this with respect to 1, I can say that this is 0 minus 1, or I can say that this becomes approximately equal to minus of is. So in the reverse bias condition, you can see this is for Vd greater than 0, this is for Vd is equal to 0, and this portion is for Vd less than 0. Vd less than 0, you can see that the current flowing through the through this particular PN junction diode is nothing but the reverse saturation current is, but in the negative direction. So we can say that it is approximately equal to minus of is. I hope this is clear. The reverse bias condition. Is it clear to all?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now we have seen, let us see the circuit which we have done in our lab. This was about the diode and forward and reverse bias conditions and how the equation of the diode is being understood. Now, in our lab, how we have connected it, how to observe the current versus voltage characteristics. So what is the current flowing through the diode? Let me call this as the diode current ID, current flowing through the diode, and the voltage across the diode is measured using a voltmeter here like this, or a multimeter we can connect and measure this voltage, which will nothing be equal to Vd, right? So how to do this? This is the circuit diagram. In this circuit diagram, what we have connected along with this diode, where this is the anode and this is the cathode. So we know that the diode will conduct whenever it is in the forward bias condition. So first what we do, we are connecting it in the forward bias condition. That means the anode should be connected to the positive potential and cathode to the negative potential. So how do we connect? You can see here, in order to limit the current flowing through this diode, because we know that once the cut-in voltage is crossed, the device will actually start conducting, and the current flowing through this device or this particular diode here will only be limited by the load current, by the load circuit. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to limit that current, otherwise this will be a short circuit, almost near to a short circuit to the supply. So we are having a variable voltage source here, and in series to which we are connecting a resistance Rs. This is for the safety of this particular device. Otherwise, if Rs is not connected, if we directly connect it like this, what will happen? Once the voltage is greater than the certain voltage, device will actually start conducting and offer very low resistance, overall resistance. Then what will happen? A large amount of current will flow and may actually burn the device also and destroy the supply also. So we need to make sure that we connect a resistance always in series for such a circuit. So we have connected a resistance Rs in the circuit here in such a way that it is in series with the diode, and we have connected anode to this particular terminal, positive side, so that it is getting this positive, and cathode is receiving the negative terminal. and voltmeter we connect, or a multimeter here in voltmeter mode we connect, so to measure the potential across the anode to cathode terminals, right? So this is we connect for forward bias condition. Now what we do here, once we connect it like this, you can see this is the observation table. So this is the source voltage, this variable source voltage V. This is the multimeter reading in voltage mode VD. We are measuring the current flowing through this diode using the ammeter here. So you can connect an ammeter here like this. What is it measuring? It is measuring the current ID to the ammeter here. Now we connect a milliammeter here because the currents are in milliamperes to make it in the measurable range. So what are we varying here now? We are varying the source voltage here. So we start with very small voltages 0.1. What will happen? This voltage is lower than that of the anode to cathode voltage, anode to cathode barrier potential. It will no longer, or it is not enough to overcome this barrier, so it will still be in the forward bias condition but not conducting the current. So current is 0, leading to the voltage across also this device to be 0 here. Similarly, we increase the voltage here 0.2. Now it is become still 0. Current is also 0. We make it 0.300. We increase the value of this variable source voltage 0.4, and you can see here 0.1 ampere starts flowing through the diode here. Here voltage across the device will also change because it is now under conduction. Why? Because this is how the characteristics of the device is, ID versus VD. You can see after this point, you can say that this is the cut-in voltage. Once the cut-in voltage is crossed, the device starts conducting and large amount of current flows through it and is only limited by the load connected in the circuit here. And you can see we have increased now step by step the voltage of the source, and the current flowing through the device also starts increasing. After some time, you can see even if we are increasing the value of voltage, supply voltage, source voltage across this device has become constant 0.8, 0.7, 0.8, 0.8 and so on, even if the current is being increased. So what is this voltage basically? We can say that after this, the voltage across the device has become constant. So how will be the characteristics here? If I plot the characteristics, this will be something. Okay, in the forward bias condition, ID versus VD. Here it is small ID versus small VD. So once it is on, you can say that this is the voltage which is becoming constant. How much? 0.8. Right? You can see all the readings and draw the graph correspondingly. What happens in the reverse bias condition? The reverse bias condition is we just connect it in the opposite way. That means we reverse the polarity of the supply. So minus, plus, minus and plus. We connect it like this. We remove this and connect it in this particular fashion. What will happen? Negative is reaching now anode and positive is now reaching the cathode, which will make this a reverse bias condition. Right? So in this reverse bias condition, what will happen if we increase the source voltage? Current still is 0, but you have to note one thing, that here we are measuring the current in milliamperes in forward bias, whereas in reverse bias you are measuring the current in microamperes, because I told you that IS, which is the reverse saturation current in reverse bias condition, which is very small, negligibly small. So you can see the difference. It is milliamperes and this is micro. That means 10 raised to power 1000 times it is actually smaller when compared to the forward bias current. So you can draw it in that particular scale. So in the reverse bias condition, so even if this is in milliamperes, then y-axis in the negative direction, this current should be in microamperes. So you will be able to see that this current is very small. I have just drawn it in such a way that you can see the difference here, but this is not to scale. The current is 0 initially till 0.8 volts in the reverse bias condition, and then finally we are increasing the voltage again in the reverse bias condition and current starts to flow here, but it is reaching and settling only to 0.8 microamperes. So this is in microamperes. This scale is very smaller, 1000 times smaller than that of your y-axis or positive y-axis. You should understand that this is basically an expanded variation. And what will happen if we keep on increasing the source voltage in the negative reverse bias condition? What will happen? The diode will actually go reverse breakdown. Okay? So it will undergo reverse breakdown at a voltage, reverse bias voltage. If we keep on increasing that voltage, the diode will lose its property once it has gone the reverse breakdown condition. So we can say this point is the reverse breakdown voltage point. So we can plot these characteristics, the forward as well as reverse bias characteristics, by these readings. So these readings will be already given to you through the lab manual. So since this is a lab manual, let me just show you. This is the observation table which is given to you already. We can use this to plot it. Now just let us look at the procedure here. So I've already said what are we going to do, but let us quickly see the manual. In the manual, so note that the type of diodes which are connected in the experimental board should know the type and model numbers. So we need to note that. Second is to connect the milliammeter, ammeter in milliampere mode, and voltmeter across the diode for forward bias condition. Need to set this voltage, the source voltage, for different values by varying it, and we need to note down corresponding voltage across diode as well as current which is flowing through the diode. That means VD as well as ID, and we need to tabulate these observations. So these are the observations which I have shown you: VS, VD and ID. Now we need to repeat the same process for reverse bias condition and draw the graph between current versus voltage, taking suitable scales on y and x axis. So when you say suitable scales, you should understand that in reverse bias condition you would have a scale which is very, or you can say 1000 times smaller than that of the forward bias condition. So that you should keep in mind while drawing the graph. So take a suitable operating point and determine what are the static and dynamic resistances of the diode here. Fine. So using this characteristics, current versus voltage, forward bias as well as reverse bias characteristics, you can draw and plot these values. Find out what is the static resistance as well as dynamic resistance of the PN junction diode here. So what is static resistance? So the resistance which is offered in the forward biased mode, we call it as the DC forward resistance. Okay. Is the ratio of DC voltage which is coming across the diode to the DC current flowing through it. We call that as the static resistance of the diode. And how will you get this? So your curve which you are having here, this is between ID versus VD. Ratio is voltage to the current here. So basically the slope of this will be giving you what is the static resistance, and that will be nothing but inverse of that value, 1 by R, because 1 by R is nothing but the slope of this ID versus VD, and VD divided by ID will be equal to R here. So this will be giving you what is 1 by R. R is the static resistance. What is dynamic resistance? So it is offered by the diode to a AC signal. So when the same PN junction diode is used for AC signal, what will happen? AC signal is not static, right? It is actually varying quantity. It is varying between a positive as well as negative value, and it is oscillating. So in that particular case, the resistance which this device will offer is actually a AC resistance. And to find out this, the dynamic resistance of the diode is defined as the reciprocal of the slope of forward characteristics. So again, there is a specific way of deriving the value of this dynamic resistance, because it is resistance offered to the AC signal. So that opposition offered by this diode is actually known as the dynamic resistance here. So we can understand this to be the reciprocal of the slope of forward characteristics. So here, the one which I have shown here. So for this is the characteristics and the inverse of this ratio. So this basically will be your dynamic resistance, R. And for static resistance, how to find out? Static resistance will be directly taken Vd divided by I. Vd divided by Id. Directly those currents we will be dividing. Fine. Now, so those will be the observation as well as these values. So in as part of calculation, you can calculate from this graph what is the static resistance and what is the cut-in voltage of your diode, PN junction diode here. So the answers are also given. You have to verify this. This should be filled up by you, but the answer is already given. You need to verify this in your graph from the graphs which you are plotting. You need to write down conclusion and these quiz questions for A part of this experiment. A part is pretty simple. We understand what is the PN junction diode and how to connect it and in forward and reverse bias condition and plot the characteristics. Only important thing is that the scale which I told you. That means this y-axis is in milliamperes, whereas negative y-axis is actually in microampere. So make sure that you follow this. If you want to do it online using some simulations, we can do it also using this link. There is a link of virtual labs. You can see the graph of current versus voltage for a PN junction diode. This can be done at your own site. I'm just giving you this link. I'll do one thing. Okay, I can't copy it right now because it is completely written here from this. So you can take a snapshot of this and visit this website and do the simulation online also. A way of doing understanding it in online way, online platform in virtual labs. Fine. So that is A part of your experiment. What is experiment 7, B part? Okay, B part is understanding the rectifier circuit using PN junction diode. So let me just show you that. Yeah, I have already shown this manual to you to implement different type of rectifier circuits. So implement rectifier circuits using PN junction diode. Okay. So we have seen that this is your diode and this is a symbol. So understanding the theory behind this, we have understood that this is anode and cathode. How does it behave? The characteristics, according to the characteristics, we know that whenever anode, this voltage VAK is greater than 0, that means implies forward bias condition. Right? What does that imply? That if the voltage in the forward bias condition, if VAK is greater than the cut-in voltage, cut-in voltage, V cut-in, then we say that the diode turns on. We say that the diode is actually turning on. That means this PN junction diode is allowing a flow of current from anode to cathode, this ID. And if it is allowing the current to flow like this from anode to cathode, we can say that this is behaving as a switch. This switch is actually being closed during the forward bias condition. Whenever the voltage is greater than the cut-in voltage, the switch is actually closed and there is a flow of current which is established from anode to cathode. Isn't it? From anode to cathode only, not cathode to anode. Only from anode to cathode. Now what happens when VAK is less than 0? We know that this is the reverse bias condition, and if this condition exists, what will happen? There will be no flow due to the majority carriers, only a small or negligibly small amount of current will flow from cathode to anode, and that is known as the reverse saturation current. And you can see that value of the current here, this is IS, reverse saturation current, the opposite direction from cathode to anode. This is very small when compared to the actual current. So in the if I'm drawing this graph in the same scale, so if this is ID, then I can say that this will be somewhere near to 0, like this, somewhere here. If I'm using the same scale on positive y-axis and negative y-axis, this will be near to 0, this line. But if we have amplified this by 1000 times, then you can see that this graph will be something like this. Okay, this is amplified or magnified view here, 1000 times. Otherwise, on the same scale as positive y-axis, this will be near to 0. So if it is near to 0, that means no current it is allowing to flow in the reverse bias condition. We can replace this switch by an open circuit, right, like this. You can say that the flow of current ID is equal to 0. The forward direction current is 0. So what can we say by this property of diode? We can comment here that whenever the diode is in the forward bias condition, it is behaving as a closed switch, allowing the current to flow from anode to cathode, and whenever it is in the reverse bias condition, the current flow from anode to cathode becomes 0 and the diode becomes as an open circuit, open switch. This is an open switch. This is a closed switch. So this property here, this graph, okay, so this graph of current versus voltage, current versus voltage of this PN junction diode makes this PN junction diode a unidirectional device. Okay, so this makes the device as a unidirectional device. What do you mean by unidirectional? What do you understand by the term unidirectional device? Any of you can answer.
It is work in only one direction.
It is allowing the current flow, because what is happening here by changing the bias, what is happening here is by controlling the bias voltage, we are able to change the property of this junction, PN junction, and allow the flow of current, right? So this current is, even though it is being allowed, but it is allowed only from anode to cathode. There is no current which is flowing in the reverse bias condition from cathode to anode. So only one direction the current is flowing. We call this as a unidirectional device here, from anode to cathode only in the forward bias condition. This property helps us to use this PN junction diode in which type of circuits? In rectifier circuits. Now what is a rectifier? Who will tell me what is a rectifier?
It converts AC to DC.
Okay, good. So 58 58 is saying it converts AC to DC. How does it convert AC to DC? It is having diodes inside it, that is these PN junction diodes. So what will happen? You can see there are three types of rectifiers which we are going to study. The first one is the half wave rectifier. Okay, half wave rectifier. The second is a full wave rectifier.
Full wave rectifier.
Yeah, full wave rectifier with center tapped transformer. And the third one is again a full wave rectifier with bridge circuit. Right, so let us see what is a half wave rectifier. So you can see here, this is the sinusoidal voltage waveform. We have seen in our previous experiment also what is an AC waveform and single phase AC supply, which you have seen, right? So this is the single phase AC here, alternating. Now we need to convert it into a DC quantity. DC quantity means it is not having any negative part. So what do? We use this property of diode. If we connect it in such a way that the anode to cathode potential in the positive half, we say that this is positive half, this voltage is positive, VAK, and what will happen? It will be in the forward bias condition, and in the negative half, this voltage will be negative. That means this voltage will reverse bias the diode. What will it do? It will be off, right? So there will be no current which is flowing in the circuit. So it will disconnect the circuit in the negative half, this negative half. Again in the positive half it will connect the circuit, negative half it will disconnect, and so on. So how can we say? We can say that only positive halves will be coming at the output. So you can see here, this is the positive half, and positive half, and negative halves are not coming because during this time the negative half, this diodes which are inside the rectifier, they will be blocking that voltage and not allowing any current to flow through the device here. So this will be the type of half wave rectified output here: positive, 0, positive, 0, positive, 0, and so on. Now, what is the simplest circuit of a half wave rectifier? You can see this is the circuit. This is the diode, anode, and cathode. Anode is connected to this sinusoidal voltage source, and this part is grounded here. And you can see cathode is connected to the load resistance here, across which we need to measure the output voltage. We need a rectified voltage, a DC voltage. Then this ground terminal which is here, what does it tell? That these two are at the same potential. Basically, if we join it by a same wire, the circuit will be completed in this particular fashion. What will happen in the positive half? This is the sinusoidal voltage which you are having at the input side. So in the positive half, this positive, that means this is positive and this is negative, right? So what will happen? So this is positive and this is in the positive half, this is positive, that is connected to the anode, which will forward by this PN junction diode. This will behave as a closed switch instead of open. Now this will become a closed switch. That means whatever the potential at this point will reach, and that voltage will reach this point also. That means if this is a closed switch, the diode is actually connecting these 2 points. As a result, whatever the source voltage is there, that will come across the load resistance. So what is the source voltage? The source voltage is having this waveform in the positive half. Same waveform will come across the load also in the positive half. Right? What happens in the negative half? Let us see what happens in the negative half. In the negative half, this is the negative half here from T1 to T2. From 0 to T0 to T1 it was positive half. T1 to T2 it is negative half. Negative means here it is negative with respect to the ground, which is positive. Ground means these two are at ground, means they are joined together. So minus and plus. Minus is connected to anode, which will reverse bias the diode here. As a result, it behaves as an open switch. Open switch. No current flows through this. As a result, whatever the terminal voltage across the load here, this voltage, it will be disconnected from this particular source here. If it is disconnected from the source here, what will be this voltage? This voltage will be 0 volt. It is not getting any voltage from any other point, isn't it? This is isolated now because this is disconnected. One second. So this will be disconnected and output voltage will be across the load will be 0. You can see this is the output voltage. This cycle continues again and again. So what will be the waveform which you are getting? You'll get a positive half, then 0, again positive half in the positive of supply, then 0 during the negative half, positive and 0 and so on. So this type of a waveform, this is the waveform which you are getting. Just draw the line again, like this. Okay, as a result, we can say that it does not have any negative components here. No negative components for this particular waveform. We say that this is a rectified waveform and it is only having positive part, even though the output is having some pulses in the output, a pulsating nature, because this is pulse 0, pulse 0, positive pulse 0 and so on. Still it is a DC quantity only, because if we take the average of this pulsating waveform will have a positive value. So if how to find out the average here, you can see if this is a complete cycle. What is a cycle? Cycle is for any waveform, any repeated waveform, a cycle is when the waveform is actually starting to repeat itself from the same points, right? So if this waveform we are finding out from here, if we are starting, okay, this is 0, now it is increasing, has become 0, this for total time it is 0, and after this time instant this waveform is repeating itself. So what is this total time period? If this is 0, this is 360 degree or 2 pi, this is 0, this is 180 degrees or pi, and this is pi, and this is 2 pi. So the total time period here is 360 degrees or 2 pi radians. If the signal here can be written as Vm sine omega t, right? What is Vm sine omega t? This is the waveform, source voltage. Here this axis is omega t and this is voltage V, and this peak we have seen, this is plus Vm, this is minus Vm. This is the waveform Vm sine omega t, and for this waveform, what is this time period? Time period is completion of one particular cycle. So this is 2 pi, this is pi, that is 180 degree, and this is 0 here. And the output will also have similarly only the positive half. This, if I want to draw in the using another color, you can say this is the positive half you are getting, then 0, again positive half and 0. So the black is basically the supply voltage, and this this maroon waveform is basically the output across this load resistance, which is a rectified waveform. I hope this is clear to all.
Yes, sir.
Now there are some important parameters which we need to define for any given rectifier circuit. First of all, we have already marked here that there will be some average voltage, right? So how to calculate that value of average voltage here? So average for a half wave rectifier, average voltage. Average is nothing but the area under the curve divided by the total time period. That will give you the average of that particular function. Now this is a repeating function. So we know that its time period is how much? This is the time period from this to this. This is the time period here. 0 to 360 degree, or this is 2 pi radians. So during this 2 pi radians, I can say average value will be 1 divided by, that is, or if I want to write down in a different way, what is the area under the curve? The area under the curve is nothing but the integration of this function. What is this function here? This function is basically Vm sin omega t. So integration of this function 0 to 2 pi, from here to 0 to 2 pi, the function is Vm sin omega t, or whatever your function here is. Let us say this function is, the source voltage is Vs is equal to Vm sin omega t. So the integration of that d omega t, because your x-axis is not t, it is omega t, divided by the total time period. What is the total time period? Let me call it as capital T, the total time period here. Where what is T here? Total time period, we know it is 2 pi radians. Now what is this waveform Vs? This waveform Vs is an output voltage. This is for output, average of output voltage. For output, you can see from only 0 to pi that waveform is equal to your supply voltage. Only from 0 to pi it is equal to the supply voltage. In the remaining time it is 0. That is pi to 2 pi it is 0. If I open this limits here, so from 0 to pi, this is equal to Vm sin omega t d omega t d omega t, and from pi to 2 pi this will be 0. This voltage is 0 here. You can see from pi to 2 pi d omega t, this whole divided by the total time period, which is how much? 2 pi again. So how much is the average value? Average output voltage average value, that comes out to be 0 to pi Vm. Vm is again a constant, so Vm, and this 2 pi also a constant. I am taking it outside. We are having integration of 0 to pi sin omega t d omega t, and 0, this gets cancelled. So what is the value here? Vm by 2 pi, and integration of sin omega t, we know that this is minus of cos omega t from 0 to pi limits. So what will be the value here? This will be Vm divided by 2 pi. So since it is a minus sign, I can put the lower limit first here. So cos 0 is 1 minus cos pi is minus 1. So this will be how much? 2 divided by 2 pi into Vm, or the answer comes out to be Vm divided by pi. Vm divided by pi. So the average value of half wave rectified sine wave is Vm divided by pi. The output average divided by pi is the average value of output voltage for a half wave rectifier. Fine. Now another term which you need to define here, or you need to mention and derive, the RMS value. RMS value. What is RMS? Root mean square. . how to find out the RMS of any signal? You have to tell now. How to find out RMS?
Vm by root 2.
No, but how to find out? You have seen how did we derive average voltage Vm by pi, right? Similarly, how do we derive the RMS value? So RMS is root mean square, right? So what we do, as we did in average, similarly here what we'll do is for a root of square, root mean square. Means V output RMS is nothing but root of mean of square of signals. Mean means we have to divide it by the total time period. Average we are finding out. Mean means average. So root of the average of which values? The square of the signal. So what was the signal? Our signal is basically the output voltage, right? So output voltage V naught square, whatever the signal is. So we need to find out the mean here. Mean means for this signal we integrate from 0 to the total time period d omega t. Which signal? The square of the signal. V naught is the output voltage. We square it and we take the average. Taking the average or mean is integration of 0 to t divided by t and taking the root of this. So this becomes, first term is this root, then this becomes the mean, then square of your function, root mean square. But what is V naught? You can see here for this half wave rectified sine wave, you can see that from 0 to pi, V naught is equal to Vs, and from pi to 2 pi, V naught is equal to 0, isn't it? Here it is equal to Vs and here it is equal to 0 from pi to 2 pi. So you can say that from 0 to 2 pi, total time period is 2 pi. Then write down this is root of integration from 0 to pi. V naught can be written as equal to Vs itself. Vs is nothing but Vm sine omega t. So Vm square sine square omega t d omega t plus integration of pi to 2 pi, again V naught square. But what is V naught? V naught is equal to 0. So this is 0 square d omega t dt d omega t divided by the total time period here is how much? Time period is 2 pi. So this will be the RMS value. Now how to calculate this? Simplify this quickly. So this is root of Vm square divided by 2 pi, Vm square by 2 pi, this is constant, and integration of 0 to pi sine square omega t d omega t. How to integrate this integration of sine square omega t? Quickly. Roll number 30. Roll number 31. 33.
Sir, 1 minus cos 2 omega t divided by
Yes, so you can use that formula to integrate this. So this will be basically root of Pm square divided by 2 pi into sine square omega t can be written as 1 minus cos 2 omega t divided by 2. We have to integrate this 0 to pi d omega t. So what will be the solution here now? So V naught RMS is equal to root of Vm square by 2 pi. So again this is integration of, if we take separate these parts, what will be this 2 pi and this 2 also I am taking out the denominator. So this will be integration of 1 minus cos 2 omega t. So integration of d omega t, that is omega t the limit is from 0 to pi, minus integration of cos 2 omega t is sine 2 omega t divided by 2. Again the limit is from 0 to pi. Just check whether what I've written is clear or not, correct or not. This becomes root of Vm square divided by 2 pi into 2 into omega t is equal to pi minus 0, so this will become pi minus 0. Or the first limits of omega t is equal to pi and omega t is 0, minus sine 2 pi, because we have to put the limits. So sine 2 pi is 0, minus sine of 0 is also 0, so 0 minus 0. This term will be like this. So this gets cancelled here, you can see 0 and this is pi, this pi gets cancelled. What we are getting here is root of square divided by 4, and this will be nothing but Vm divided by 2. So what are we getting here? We are getting here that the RMS value of a half wave rectified sine wave comes out to be divided by 2. I hope this is clear.
Yes, sir.
Now, once we know what is the RMS value and what is the average value, then we can define a factor here which is known as the ripple factor. What is ripple factor? Ripple factor is found out by taking root of RMS component, RMS of the signal divided by average of the signal whole square minus 1. Root of this will give you what is the ripple factor. Basically it is providing us how much is actually the pulsating waveform quantity in the overall average value. That means overall effect of or the presence of oscillating quantity or the AC quantity in a output rectified DC signal is basically the ripple factor. That means how much is this pulsating level, ripple, right? Ripple is basically oscillations. How much is the still present oscillations in the rectified output? That is actually being measured by this factor known as the ripple factor. Its value is root of RMS component divided by average component the whole square minus 1. So if I want to find out what is the ripple factor for half wave rectifier, you can see this will be root of RMS. We have already found out this is Vm by 2, so this is Vm by 2 divided by average is Vm by pi whole square minus 1. Will be how much Vm gets cancelled. This will be pi by 2 whole square minus 1, the root of this. This comes out to be 1.211 for a half wave rectifier. Is it clear to all? The ripple factor. Now this is the half wave rectifier. What happens in a full wave rectifier? So in a full wave rectifier, not only the positive half but the negative half is also being converted in the, or you can say that is also being converted into a positive half, a positive quantity. So this is your sinusoidal signal with positive half and negative half. So for a full wave rectification, the positive half will also come at the output. Also the negative half is coming as a positive quantity the output. So between these 2 points also, whatever the negative quantity was there, that also comes out at the output as the positive half, and so on. So you can see here this is the waveform. So for a half wave rectifier, we had seen that if this is the input for a half wave rectifier, what was the output? The output was coming out to be like this, the time period. That means it was getting for one cycle only one pulse at the output. And if I ask you what is the output, this is the output voltage, this is the source voltage, both will have the same frequency. The frequency of the output is equal to the frequency of the input because both have the same time period. But what happens for a full wave rectifier? For a full wave rectifier here, this is the waveform and the time period here, T. But for the output voltage here, if we see it, it is repeating itself not just at T but at T by 2. So after every T by 2 seconds, it is actually repeating itself. This is T, again 3T by 2, so on. So if I ask what is the frequency here, if the frequency here is F input, here it is F output for a for a full wave rectifier, then I can say that this frequency, since the time period of this output is actually becoming half, that means the frequency is becoming twice here. So the output voltage for a full wave rectifier will have a frequency 2 times that of your input frequency. F naught is equal to 2 times Fi. This is with respect to the waveform of your full wave rectifier. Now again, as I told you in the earlier slide, that full wave rectifier can also be realized in 2 ways. One of the ways is using a center tap transformer. The other one is a bridge rectifier. So what is the first one? Let us see. The center tapped full wave rectifier. So what we are having here for a center tap full wave rectifier is a center tap transformer. What do we require? We require 2 diodes. What does it require? You can write down. It requires one center tapped transformer, 2 diodes. So you can see here, this is how it is connected. The primary is connected to the supply voltage, sinusoidal voltage. This is connected to this primary of the transformer, and secondary is basically connected to 2 diodes in this particular fashion, where secondary is a center tapped secondary. What do you mean by center tap? Center tap means that secondary winding will have a tapping which is available at the midpoint of this secondary winding. So if this is having total number of turns n, then at n by 2, at this point we will have a tapping, and that point is also available to us, which is known as the center tap point. Okay, so how do we connect this center tap transformer secondary so that we get a rectification, full wave rectification? We take this point, we join this with the load resistance. So this the load resistance is connected like this to the common cathodes of the 2 diodes here. So anode is connected to the positive one terminal of secondary here. The other diode anode is connected to the other terminal of the secondary, and both these diodes have the same common shared cathode, which is connected to one end of the load resistance. The other end of the load resistance is actually connected to the center tap point. Now what happens in such a case? The positive half and negative half, let us see. So in the positive half, this is the positive half. So the supply voltage is positive here. That means this positive and positive, it will induce a voltage positive and negative polarity in the center tap transformer here on the secondary side. Plus minus, plus minus. So the top point here is plus with respect to the center tap. You should understand that. And this is how it is connected. Right. This 2 points at ground means that they are at the same potential. Just to show that. So they are separately connected. We can use a wire to connect it like this. These 2 points. So with respect to the center tap, the top is having positive polarity, and with respect to this bottom terminal of the secondary, the center tap is having a positive polarity. So this is the polarity of voltage which is induced on the secondary here, plus minus, plus and minus. What will happen because of such voltage polarities induced here? This positive is connected to the anode of diode D1. It will forward bias the diode D1. That means it will get connected, it will be turned on and it will get connected like this, and this positive terminal, whatever the voltage is here, that will reach and get connected to this positive of the load terminal. So if I am measuring the voltage across this load resistance, then the positive, this point of my output V0, this will be connected at the positive of my secondary voltage, right? And what about this center tap? This is negative. This negative is actually now connected to the resistance other terminal. Basically, what is this voltage then? This voltage is, output voltage is basically equal to the voltage of the secondary winding with the positive polarity. Let's say the voltage at the number of turns is ns on the secondary, and on primary it is np, right? So whatever the voltage which is being coming here is ns divided by np times the input voltage. So input voltage is, so Vs to ns divided by np. Now if ns is the total number of turns, or let's say ns is the number of turns on the top as well as this is also ns. The total number of turns on the secondary is 2ns. Top of the center tap is ns and bottom is also ns, let's say. So ns divided by np will be the transformation ratio. Depending upon that input voltage, it will get multiplied. This will be the output voltage which is being coming at the secondary between the positive as well as center tap. Now this voltage is now directly coming across output whenever diode D1 is turned on. What about diode D2? What is happening? You can see because of this polarity plus and minus, so minus gets connected to the anode here, thereby disconnecting this cathode, this diode D2, because it is reverse bias. Minus connected to anode, this gets off. So this gets disconnected from the circuit altogether. So what is the voltage which is coming across this? The voltage which is coming is exactly equal to the voltage Vs multiplied by the turns ratio of the transformer. So Vs into Ns divided by Np. That is this voltage which is coming here. I hope everyone understands. Now what happens in the negative half? In the negative half, like this is the negative half. So the polarity here becomes plus and minus. Sorry, just the opposite. In the negative half, the polarity here is minus and plus, as a result of which you will get here minus with respect to that plus, minus with respect to ground, plus. Here also you can see that this connected to ground means this is, they both are connected at the same point. What will happen? Minus, which is connected to diode anode, it will disconnect this diode from the circuit altogether. This will be reverse bias condition, open circuited. So it is not connected here. Whereas plus minus, plus and minus and plus, this plus is connected to the anode. It will turn on this forward biased diode D2. That means whatever the potential which is coming at this point will reach and connect to the top of this resistance. And this is the output voltage between these 2 points, isn't it? So again, the positive terminal of the load resistance is connected to positive itself. What about the negative? The negative is actually connected through this to the negative quantity here. So again, what is the voltage which is coming across RL? Again, its polarity seems to be the same, plus minus. Here also the polarity was plus and minus. Here also it is coming out to be plus minus. And how much is the voltage? Since this is NS, this NP primary, this is also NS. So again, here also the value of output voltage will be equal to the secondary voltage induced. Secondary voltage will be NS by NP times the input voltage, which is Vs. So you can see that both for positive half as well as negative half, we are getting a positive voltage across the load here by turning on diodes D1 and D2 in positive and negative halves respectively, leading to a voltage which is positive here. So positive half also positive voltage you are getting, negative half also positive voltage you are getting. The same thing happens again in the next cycle. So this type of a waveform you get repeated again and again. So this is how the center tap transformer actually works and converts your alternating signal into a DC quantity, a pulsating DC quantity. Now similarly here also this waveform will have some average value as well as RMS value. So this is the waveform which you have. All are having the same peak. So this is Vm, is the output voltage, and this is the x-axis which is omega t. How to find out what is the average value? So V naught average for a full wave rectifier. Again for this particular case, since this is total time period is t, this will be t by 2. We know this is total time period t. So this is only t by 2 only. It's 2 pi and this is pi. This is 0. So average value is area under the curve. Area under the curve only for the time period. But here the time period is not 2 pi. The time period is only pi, because after every pi radians the output voltage is basically repeating itself. So integration of 0 to pi, whatever that function is, V naught d omega t divided by the total time period here is pi, from 0 to pi. So what is this V naught? We know that from 0 to pi, V naught can be written as how much? In terms of voltage, this can be written as Ns by Np times Vs into d omega t divided by pi. Ns, Np, these are constants. Ns divided by Np divided by pi, that is also constant. Vs is nothing but Vm sin omega t. So Vm, because this is nothing but Vm sin t. So Vm is also constant. I am taking Vm also common output. Integration of 0 to pi sin omega t is whole divided by time period is pi. Okay, so this pi is already taken out here, so I am not repeating this again. Since this Ns into Vs by Np and this pi, it is already taken out, I am not repeating this step again. So Vm by pi is already there. So how much is this value? V naught average comes out to be, this is Ns by Np times Vm by pi. Integration of sin omega t is minus cos omega t. The limit is from 0 to pi. To apply this, you will get 0 minus minus 1, so this is 2. So you will get 2 times Vm divided by pi to Ns divided by P. So Ns divided by Np. Now this is the transformation ratio. Now if let's say you have taken a transformer, the center type transformer, such that Ns is equal to Np. If Ns is equal to Np, then this will get cancelled, and you can say that V naught average value comes out to be 2 times Vm by pi. 2 times Vm divided by pi. And if you compare with the half wave rectifier case, half wave rectifier we got it Vm by pi. Here we have got 2 Vm divided by pi. Right? And if I ask you what is the output voltage RMS value, how will you do? Again, root of mean of square, right? Mean means divided by the time period is pi, square of the signal. Square of the signal means the signal is how much? V naught square d omega t. If you find out substituting V naught as, how much is V naught? V naught is this value, ns by np times vs, where vs is vm sin omega t. Just a second. Yeah, so let us resume. V naught square divided by pi into d omega t, and so whenever we say, this is basically integration, sorry, 0 to pi, 0 to pi v naught square d omega t divided by pi. And if we substitute v naught, what is v naught here? V naught is vm sin omega t, that is vs, into ns by np, right? So if you substitute this, and similar to the previous case, if you integrate sin square omega t by substituting 1 minus cos 2 omega t by 2 and so on, we'll come to the final value here for a full wave rectifier. For a full wave rectifier, this complete value comes out to be how much? The RMS value comes out to be Vm by root 2. Vm divided by root 2. So this will give V naught RMS is equal to Vm by root 2. If here also, since Ns and Np are also coming, so Ns is equal to Np. If we are taking this values to be same number of turns on the secondary as well as primary, when I say secondary and primary means you should understand that this is Ns and Np, and secondary is having a center tap. What we have taken here, between these 2 points it is Ns, and these 2 points is also Ns. So basically total number of turns on the secondary are 2 Ns, this is Np. I can say total number of turns are Np is to 2 Ns, and here if Np is equal to Ns, P is equal to Ns, or I can say that this is 1 is to 2 turns ratio. If Np and Ns are both same, this is Np and this is 2 Np, right? Basically it's a 1 is to 2 transformer where equally these two are divided. So in that particular case, the value comes out to be Vm by root 2. Vm by root 2. And if I ask you to find out what is ripple factor here, ripple factor is RMS divided by average square minus 1 root of that value. So RMS is Vm by root 2 divided by average is 2 Vm by pi, the whole square minus 1. So that comes out to be how much? Vm by root 2 divided by 2 Vm by pi. So this becomes pi divided by 2 root 2. So pi square divided by 2 square is 4 to the 8. So pi square by 8 minus 1. Okay, and this comes out to be 0.4834. The ripple factor for a full wave rectifier with the center tap transformer is 0.4834. I hope the analysis is clear to all of you. Is it clear to all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now what happens in a bridge rectifier circuit? What is the difference here? In a bridge rectifier circuit, what we require is, we don't require any transformer. Okay. So even in this figure, you can see there is a simple transformer which is shown. It is not actually required. It's just for showing that we can provide some isolation in the circuit. So no center tap transformer is not required. Only requirement is 4 diodes. 4 diodes are required. If I want to redraw this circuit, I can say that this will be your AC source. Okay. Another way of representing this bridge rectifier circuit is to draw like this. So 4 diodes are connected like this particular fashion. Positive is connected at this point. Negative of the supply is connected here, or the other part of AC is connected here, and output is connected across this. This is the load resistance, RL. Okay, so this is your source voltage, and as per this diagram, source voltage is connected, positive is connected to D1 and this is D3. So anode is D1, so this is D1, this is D3. Cathode, this is connected to D2, this is D2 and this is D4. So D1, D2, D3 and D4. These two are basically the same circuits equivalently. Okay, so how the working is? So in the positive half, what happens? In the positive half, we know that this is the supply voltage polarity, plus and minus. So this plus is connected to this point at anode of D1 and cathode of D3. They both are same points, right? So what will happen? D1 will be forward bias. That means this will be turned on, whereas this will be open here. This will be open circuit. It is reverse bias because positive is connected to cathode. D3 will be reverse bias. So D1 is forward bias, so this is turned on. What about this minus? This minus is connected here to this point. This is connected to cathode of D2, making it forward bias. That means this is turned on. Negative connected to cathode makes forward bias, whereas negative connected to anode makes this reverse bias. That means it is disconnected, open circuit. So where is the circuit now connected? So this is positive to this D1, through this load resistance, through that D2 and back to the source. This will be the direction of your current. If you want to highlight, let me use this color to highlight here. So the current path is like this. Hope everyone can see. This is the path of current in the positive half. This positive half. If you see, the current is from this positive to negative here. Output voltage. What about the other half, the negative half? So in the negative half, let us see what will happen. So in this negative half, this is negative and this is positive. Rightly? This is negative and this is positive. This negative is connected here and positive to this is connected here. What will happen? Positive means diode D4 will be turned on now. This is forward bias. Positive connected to cathode. This will be disconnected. D2. Negative is connected to anode of D1. This gets disconnected. And negative is connected to cathode of D3. D3 gets forward bias. So what is the path now? If I want to show the path here, I take another color. So only D3 and D4 are on. So from this positive comes here to this path through the load resistance to D3 back to the source. Okay, so this will be the path of current. Again, you can see the direction of current flow is from plus to minus to output. The output voltage, you can see here also it is coming out to be plus to minus here. So what can you say? You can say that if this is your input voltage, positive as well as negative, then what is the output voltage? Output voltage is coming out to be positive for this half. Also for the negative half also it is coming out to be positive itself. So this is how your full wave rectification is done using a bridge type of circuit. And for bridge type circuit also, what is the waveform? If I ask you what is the average value, average कैसे निकालोगे? You will find out the same way. This is Vm, because this is your Vm sin omega t. This is peak values Vm sin omega t. Vm sin omega t is d1 is on and d2 is on together. What will happen? V0 is equal to Vs itself. And here also V0 will be equal to Vs itself. So t by 2 and this is t. Same waveform you will get, only difference between that of a center tapped rectifier circuit, the same analysis, same way to derive. Only thing is that this Ns divided by Np term will be missing here. Why? Because there is no transformer which is required. So directly here also, once you derive, you can verify by yourself later that output voltage average value comes out to be equal to 2 times Vm divided by pi, similar to that of your previous center tapped case with 2 Vm by pi, and RMS value here will come out to be V0 RMS comes out to be Vm divided by root 2. Ripple factor will be the same. How much? 0.4834. This will come out to be the same for both the cases here. I hope this is clear to all. So this is the bridge rectifier circuit, this is the center tap rectifier, and this is the half wave rectifier. So this is the B part of your experiment. Now as far as your manual is concerned, what are you supposed to do? The small theory is given to this, and these are the circuits which I just now explained. What we need to do is to connect these circuits. So first of all, we need to connect this particular circuit for both half wave, full wave, center tapped and bridge rectifiers, and connect the primary winding of this transformer to the AC mains. That means this primary of this is connected to the AC mains for half wave rectifier. Turn on the CRO, and what we do, we measure the voltage across the load. CRO we have already studied. In your electrical workshop also you are studying what is a CRO, cathode ray oscilloscope, used to visualize and measure the signals. Okay, so across this output we need to measure the waveform, or we need to visualize the waveform and measure the output voltage magnitude. So we connect a CRO probe across the output load resistance. We find out the output, and on the secondary side also and on the load side also, and measure these waveforms. Once we measure these waveforms, calculate what is the peak value of output voltage, what is RMS value, and calculate what is the ripple factor. Fine. Now you have to measure the diode resistance, the forward bias condition RF, secondary winding resistance RS, and load resistance RL. That means this load resistance value, this diode will have some forward resistance RF, small RF, right, as well as the winding resistance RS. Use that to calculate the efficiency. Same process you have to repeat for the center tapped as well as bridge rectifier circuits. That means we need to connect it like this. For these particular circuits, we need to connect the CRO probes across load resistance, across the supply, and find out what is the RMS value as well as average value and other calculations for both bridge as well as center tapped case. So same thing is to be repeated for both other two cases. And you can see here that we are having a pulsating waveform, right? Now how to reduce that pulsating effect. I think this pulsating waveform which you have both for half wave, full waves. For example, if you are having this pulsating waveform, right? So we don't want this type of waveform. This is not a pure DC. So what we do, we connect after this rectifier, we connect capacitor across the load. Whatever the load we have, we connect a capacitor across this. Here we connect it like this. It tries to filter out the pulsating component, and your waveform will be something like this, output voltage waveform. It will have ripples in it, but it will not have the magnitude of ripples will not be that much. Only ripple will be between these 2 points. So ripple can be reduced by connecting a capacitor parallel to the resistance, the load resistance. So that is what is being mentioned here. That once we connect a capacitor filter, we can see the effect of the voltage, output voltage, by connecting the output voltage to the CRO. And these are the calculation portions for all the 3 cases: half wave rectifier, center tap rectifier, and bridge rectifier. What we need to find out: peak value is Vm, this is average value Vm by pi, we have derived. RMS value is Vm by 2 for our half wave rectifier, and ripple factor we need to find. Similarly for center tapped as well as bridge rectifier. These I have already derived. Center tapped is also derived. Bridge rectifier is the same as that of center tapped rectifier. And then you have to write down the conclusion and 2 quiz questions. So this is a rather simple experiment number 7, both A part and B part. For A part, we don't have any experimental thing. For B part, that means this rectifier circuits, full wave, half wave, as well as bridge rectifier, full wave bridge rectifier, we have experimental videos which I will share with you on the Google Drive folder. Okay. So let me just check what are the dates on LMS. Okay, so we have time for this experiment. Submission due date is long time from now. So what we will do is, you don't submit it this week. When you come for the next session, we will discuss some more portions of this particular experiment in terms of how to connect it, how to calculate these values. Basically, I'll share that video with you. 3 videos are there for all these 3 cases. So I want you all to go through those videos and come up with your doubts, whatever doubts you are having regarding this experiment. Is it clear? So in the next lab, we will discuss some 5 to 10 minutes, initial minutes, we will discuss whatever are your doubts regarding this experiment, and then we'll continue with the next one. Okay? You don't have to submit it now, so don't submit it. Only after we complete next week, after your doubts, then we will submit it. Okay? Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So on Google Drive, I will share the video today itself. So watch that video, and actually I am going to share it like within 5 to 10 minutes. So you can watch it right now itself for a better understanding. Fine. So we'll close the meeting now because we have already overshot the timing.